So today we wanted to talk to you about self-care, this idea of taking care of yourself inside of your own well-being experience. It's often overlooked, and we sometimes talk about it in ways that confuse people or make it feel overwhelming. It's becoming more and more common for people to say, take care of yourself or take some time off. In school and professional spaces, you see a lot more openness for like a teacher or a principal to say, hey, I can see you need a mental health day, take that day. Or your boss is more likely to say, hey, you seem stressed, take a day off. 20 or 30 years ago, that just wasn't the case. Nowadays, we're seeing that so much more. Unfortunately, our society isn't really designed for self-care. It's really busy and we have to do a lot of things to keep up. So we have to find those opportunities to make it happen. We talk about use your agency. Dave, what are you thinking about self-care?
There's a meme, treat yourself. That's from Parks and Rec. That's not really what we're talking about when we're talking about self-care. We're talking about things you can do on a daily basis to help center yourself, make you feel better, get you back to a place of peace. Self-care isn't selfish. Taking time for yourself to get to a better place, it's something everyone should do. How can you own your own mental health and well-being and take care of yourself? Putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others.
It's a really apt analogy, that airplane analogy. One thing I learned working with folks in community and spending a lot of time just trying to figure out how can I be most helpful. Sometimes walking into some pretty large, maybe even unsolvable situations. I learned one thing I could do right away, just asking someone, how do you take care of yourself? And maybe not even phrasing it that way, because sometimes that makes the person feel like they're doing something wrong if they're not taking care of themselves. I remember working with this person. They were in an environment where they couldn't do anything. They were incarcerated. But when I talked to them about what do you like to do, they lit up. They like to journal, they like to be outside with their family and friends, they like to hike. And we started making goals just about things they could do when they were ready. Everything was about living their life. And we didn't call it self-care because she would say that's corny or I don't like that. But we just talked about it really matter-of-factly, like ways you can take care of yourself. It's more the intention behind it, because a self-care really could just be like a rest day, sleeping on your couch, taking a nap, letting all that stress wash away very intentionally. Self-care could be listening to music with your headphones. But the intention is when you're doing it to regulate, basically to calm yourself down and slow down. Being in nature, going for hikes, those are all types of self-care. And one thing I want to say is kind of a nuance to this idea of self-care is the idea of self-care is very individualistic. For some cultures, like for me being Native American, that's almost like a bad thing inside of a family situation. It's more of a sense of collective care. So some cultures or some folks are like, oh, I like to do things with people, or I have my village, or I have my neighborhood or network. And that's another way that people take care of themselves.
The point that you're making essentially is that self-care doesn't need to be solo. It doesn't need to be by yourself. Sometimes self-care is being with your friends and like having a game night or, going to the movies with your friends. That can be a way to get yourself away from whatever is stressing you out. Self-care can be things that you do by yourself, but it can also be things that you choose to do with other people. The people who are positive in your life. You don't want to try to do self-care with people who might be dragging you down and the cause of your stress.
There can always be a little bit of pressure, like, why don't you just take care of yourself, Dave? And sometimes that's easier said than done. I just want to give people some of the benefits of self-care. Like, one is because it really is something you have control of in your own life, and that sense of agency. It can sometimes feel like we don't have that control, and I want to acknowledge that. You are in charge of yourself. So if we say, well, today is a day, or next week I'm going to take a day to take care of myself, these are things we're not always comfortable or used to doing. And one thing about this way of thinking and looking for those opportunities is it's low effort. If you don't have a lot of money, it could be taking a day off or doing something with a friend, right? It doesn't have to be spa days and, Big Sur. Good for you if you can afford that, but not everybody can. I think the key is consistency. It doesn't mean that we can always do self-care every day. Maybe you set a goal with yourself. 2 to 3 days a week, you're going to find time to just do nothing for an hour or go for a walk. Hold yourself accountable to that as best you can. But I would say also be gentle with yourself. And if you miss a session, get back to it when you can.
I had trouble setting boundaries before. Like if someone's like, no, we're having a conversation about this thing and I'm really upset. If you're not in a space where you can have that conversation in a healthy way, it's okay to set a boundary and say, I just need some time. I need to gather my thoughts. Can we do it later? Maybe tomorrow, maybe this weekend. That's a type of self-care, is setting a boundary and knowing when an interaction isn't going well and it might escalate to something even worse, where you can step back and say, I want to just take a pause on this. That's agency. And you have a right to do that. If someone's like, no, you have to be here and we have to talk about this, that's just their opinion. You can check in with yourself. Does that feel true for me? If you really don't want to have that conversation at that moment, You don't have to.
Self-care shouldn't feel like a trap. If now's not the moment, it's okay to say now's not the moment. This would go better tomorrow or in an hour after I've had something to eat or a glass of water. And if you go to somebody for self-care and they say that to you, try not to take it personally. This modern life we live in and just being really busy, oftentimes feeling like we know we should go see a therapist or go do something to take care of our mental health. What I've seen a lot in my experience supporting people is self-care acts are usually how people start thinking about getting help. It's kind of that canary in the coal mine. I should do more to take care of myself. I should take an afternoon off a week. I should spend more time with my kid. One thing I found working with parents, how to support their children, it had to become a part of their goals in life. That can feel really scary to people. You're asking me to do more. But sometimes it's actually kind of the opposite. We're asking people to do less. What I would do often is say, well, what are things you already do? How do we put the intention behind that to be self-care? How do you ask your son, I'm really tired on Saturdays. It would really help me if you could wash the car. That would be a way of taking care of me. That's a form of collective care. More than the self, the family can take care of you. But I would go into families and just kind of help them think about what needs to get done, what do you already do together, and what intention could we change behind this? Or how could we have a different conversation to make it feel more like we're taking care of each other as opposed to like we're taking from each other?
You bring up mundane household chores like washing the dishes. That's opportunities to be mindful. And honestly, I don't like the word mindful because I think it's more about being present in the moment. It's being senseful. It's being in your senses. It's getting out of your mind. It's letting go of the thoughts. Being here, I'm washing this car. I'm just going to focus on how does this feel on my hand and what spots have I missed, and just being very aware. I admit I was the absent-minded professor type because I was in my head all the time. I think I'm multitasking. I think I'm being really efficient. Look, I can wash the dishes and I can think about this thing that I'm trying to do for work or at home. Then I end up dropping a dish and I break it because I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. It sounds like it's doing more, but it's really doing less because you're focusing on this thing. You get it done sooner, you get it done better, and then you can move on to the next thing. I like to get outside in nature and just to be there and to be present with it. I like to go kayaking. I really want to emphasize the somatic component of self-care, of moving your body. We have a very sedentary lifestyle. We spend a lot of time indoors. We have a lot of screens. It's really easy to get sucked into that. For me, just getting up and moving my body, just getting outside and breathing fresh air, getting a different perspective, walking around the neighborhood, it can change my whole mood.
A younger version of me had to surf or mountain bike for 3 hours to be awesome. And now I go for a 30-minute walk and I feel like a different human being. It's the simplicity of it, right? It doesn't have to be complicated.
That's right. Start small, figure out something that works, try it out. If it doesn't work, try something else. There are certain things that have resonated with a lot of people. You mentioned music is one. So listening to music you love is a great form of self-care. Taking a shower and just getting clean, that's a very spa-like experience. That works for me. Taking a nap. You don't have to feel guilty about taking a nap during the day. If you're tired and you're just not doing well, take a nap. I wake up, I'm a different person. And exercise and eating something. If you're hungry or maybe you're not eating really healthful foods, that can really affect your mood.
Yeah. Sometimes we forget to think about those things as self-care. We see them as far away or things we don't do. That's all we're trying to do is remind folks that this is a part of your self-care. I want to leave folks with some takeaways today. Some of this could feel like a little bit of pressure. Start slow and be gentle with yourself. Even just identify, it's an intention that I have to do better with that. And maybe tell somebody that is supportive, right? Don't tell a non-supportive person in life, but tell a supportive person, a friend, a family member, a peer. I've been thinking about doing some self-care around food. I want to work on that. If you feel like it's a little scary and hard to get there, I've seen friends or family, hey, I totally want to help you with that. Let's go one night a week to that vegetarian place you like, because I know it's healthier for you. Sometimes we will do self-care alone, but I think when we can involve others, especially people who care about us, it adds something to the experience. I mean, even today, what we're doing, recording this podcast, feels like self-care to me, and you help bring me into this place. So thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Don't be afraid to ask for help, whatever that looks like. An internet search, asking a friend, maybe somebody you know who does self-care. I've learned a lot of really cool ideas from people who aren't in the mental health space, and they do really great self-care.
Another reason you might be hesitant is because you feel I should just be getting more done. I should be more efficient. It's the shoulds. You want to be whatever a better person looks like in your brain. It's often getting to acceptance of here's where I am right now. Earlier this week, I went to bed super early. I'm really tired. And it turned out I was fighting off a cold. So you don't have to know why you feel a certain way, but if you're feeling a certain way, just be attuned to that and be responsive to it.
You're tying it back to the somatic piece, which is you have to be in your body to know if this is working. And I think it's really important.
Some people get caught up on the terminology of self-care.
I'm careful around the term self-care because I've used the term and people feel attacked. Like I'm almost saying to them, you're not taking care of yourself. Some people have a strong reaction to that. Self-care is just buzzwordy and I don't want to hear this anymore.
Yeah.
Just rephrase it. Think ways I take care of myself.
We don't care what term you use for this. It's really about the concept.
Collective care is one way I say it because because that could involve the self, but it could also involve your community or people around you. But sometimes I just break it down to what it is. So what are you going to do for yourself this weekend?
I've heard mental health hygiene.
Nice.
We brush our teeth and we shower. We take care of our physical bodies, and we should do the same for our mental health and our emotional health.
Don't forget your pets when taking care of yourself. You know, they're awesome, and taking them for walks. Finding things you like to do, things you've already done, keeping it simple, just remembering to have fun. There's a lot of self-care resources, so we're just going to give people some ideas to dip their toe in the water and how to start. But definitely reach out if you have questions. Thanks. And if you want to support us, please share this with others. Our goal for everyone in the world is to live a happy and healthy life, and that starts with you. See you next time.